When did it all happen? That was the question Sarah kept asking herself as the cold air from the balcony blew through the massive, glass-paneled doors of the mansion. The moonlight poured into the dimly lit room like a slow river of silver, washing over her bare feet, her worn-out jeans, and the growing ache in her heart. She was only 25. Young, strong, beautiful by any measure. Her dark skin glowed like roasted chestnuts under soft light, her eyes wide and almond-shaped, her lips full, and her long, curly hair spilling down her back in a wild cascade. But right now, she felt like nothing. Not a daughter. Not a person. Certainly not a wife. The mansion was silent, oppressive. Every corner breathed coldness. Not just from the marble floors and walls that looked like they were carved from frozen money, but from the man who owned it, the man who had become her captor. Young Min-ho, CEO of Mintech Group, one of the most ruthless, reclusive businessmen in all of Korea. 32 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, with skin like porcelain and eyes like granite. He barely spoke. When he did, his voice cut like glass. His every command felt like a verdict. And she? She was his payment. "Sarah, you need to trust me on this," her father, Mr. Naji, had whispered. His hand had trembled slightly as he slid the papers toward her. "I have no choice." Sarah stared at the contract, her chest rising and falling. "No choice? You're selling me like property to a man I don't even know, and you say it's for the best." Her mother had been crying in the corner, bound in silence since the arrest warrant was issued for illegal financial operations in Korea. Her once wealthy father was suddenly hunted by debt collectors. The company gone. Their status gone. Their home seized. And now, Sarah was the last bargaining chip. "Min-ho agreed to clear our debt," he had said. "In return, you marry him. Just 1 year. That's all." She had felt herself falling, but she didn't know into what. And now she lived like a ghost in Min-ho's mansion. There were rules. Rule 1. No entering his bedroom. Rule 2. No speaking to him unless spoken to. Rule 3. You belong to this house. Never forget it. The housekeepers barely acknowledged her. The guards sneered whenever she passed. Even the secretary, a sharp woman named Soare, never looked her in the eye. Still, Sarah remained strong. Each morning, she awoke with a new resolve. "I will not break," she whispered into the bathroom mirror. "I will not be erased." Rain hammered the roof that evening. The storm had rolled in quickly, flooding the streets. Power had flickered on and off, candles now dancing in corners of the mansion. Sarah was in the library, curled on the armchair with a tattered English novel, when the door burst open. Min-ho, wet from the storm, his black coat clung to his broad shoulders, his white shirt transparent with rain. His face was unreadable. "Why are you here?" he asked coldly, his gaze darkening. She stood, shocked. I didn't know this room was forbidden." He didn't answer. His eyes locked on hers. For once, something flickered in his expression. Confusion? Rage? Pain? She stepped back, but he stepped forward. "Do you want to run away?" he asked. "No," she lied. "Then why do you always look like you're waiting for someone to save you?" Her voice cracked. "Because I didn't ask for any of this." Silence. He moved closer. So close she could smell the rain on his skin, the faint scent of sandalwood and whiskey. And before she could move, he leaned in. A kiss. Hard. Sudden. Brutal. Her body froze. But her heart betrayed her. It pounded against her ribs like a prisoner in chains. They ended up in his bedroom that night. Clothes shed like secrets. Mouths that hadn't spoken now met in desperate silence. Hands that had never touched now explored forbidden places. When it was over, he didn't speak. He turned his back to her in bed. And by morning, he was gone. "I don't know what you think happened last night," Min-ho said without meeting her eyes at breakfast. "But don't ever mention it again." Sarah looked up from her untouched toast, hands trembling in her lap. "You kissed me." "I was drunk," he said. "You held me." She reminded him. "I don't remember." He argued. "You made love to me. It was a mistake." His words sliced through her like a blade. "I'm not your whore," she whispered.
"No," he said.
"You're my payment." She threw up in the morning. Again. And again. Until one day, the maid walked in and found her collapsed on the bathroom floor, curled up and pale. The test was positive. She was pregnant. Sarah stood in front of Minho's office door, heart pounding like a drum. She pushed the door open. He was on the phone. His eyes flicked to her once, then back to his laptop. "Out," he said flatly. She didn't move. "I said, I'm pregnant." Silence. Minho's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. She stepped forward. "It's yours." He stood. "Sarah?" Her name sounded strange on his lips, like something sacred and dangerous. "Say something," she whispered. He walked around the desk.
Paused.
Then said, "I want a paternity test." The test report arrived 3 days later. Sarah sat alone in the garden courtyard, a carefully designed space with manicured hedges and an artificial koi pond that mocked the chaos in her soul. The late autumn air was cool, and yet her body burned with silent rage.
It wasn't just about the test. It was about him.
Minho, that cold, beautiful man whose heart seemed more barren than the marble floors of this mansion. "Confirmed," said Soare, placing the sealed envelope gently on the CEO's desk. "The child is yours." Minho said nothing. He remained seated, hand resting on his jaw, eyes vacant. The bustling skyline of Seoul blinked in the glass behind him, but his world had turned eerily still. "I thought you might be relieved," Soare added with a dry smile. "I'm not." His voice was colder than usual. "But you should be," she pressed. "An heir means no one can challenge you now. The board will stop pressuring you to marry some chaebol heiress." Minho stood and walked to the window, back to her. "She wasn't supposed to matter. You slept with her." "I was drunk." Soare's voice grew soft. "But even when drunk, you don't touch things you don't want, sir." He turned sharply. "Enough." Sarah was summoned to his private dining room. The first time in weeks he had called her for a meal. She dressed simply, cream sweater over her delicate bump, hair in soft braids, face calm but unreadable. He was already seated at the long mahogany table, a single place setting across from him. "You called me here?" she said. He gestured to the seat. "Sit." She obeyed, silently. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Minho looked up. His eyes didn't hold cruelty this time, just tiredness. "It's mine." She nodded. "I told you. I will take responsibility." Her voice cracked. "As a father?" "As a husband," he said quietly. Sarah flinched. "You want to marry me now?" "It's already legal," he said. "We just never celebrated it." "There's nothing to celebrate," she whispered bitterly. Silence.
His voice lowered.
"I don't want the child to be born in scandal." She laughed without humor. "You're still worried about image, even now?" "You'll move into the main suite starting tonight," he said instead, ignoring her emotion. "You'll receive better food. A nutritionist. Bodyguards. A driver. Medical care." "And love?" she asked, staring him down. He blinked. That word again. That terrifying word. "I don't offer what I don't believe in." Her heart cracked again. Her room had been changed. No longer in the cold servant quarters, she was now in the master suite. Plush, vast, scented with lavender. She stood near the vanity, gazing at her reflection. The white silk nightgown they had left for her still had the price tag. She tugged it off. She was more than a doll in a dress. She was someone's child. And now someone's mother. A soft knock startled her. She wrapped a robe around herself and opened the door to find Minho there, slightly disheveled, jacket gone, eyes uncharacteristically warm. "I thought you'd be asleep," he said. "I was thinking." "About the baby?"
"No."
"About how long I'll survive in this cage." His gaze softened. "You're not a prisoner anymore." "Then let me leave." "I can't." She stepped closer, glaring. "Because of money? Or because you want to own me?" He didn't answer. She could feel the storm between them again. That same magnetic pull. That same ache. You kissed me before, she whispered, eyes on his lips. Do you regret that too? He moved closer, unable to stop himself. I regret not stopping. Do you hate me, Minho? He looked down at her lips. I hate that you make me feel. Then he kissed her. This time it wasn't rough. It wasn't selfish. It was slow. Hungry.
Honest.
His lips trembled against hers, his hand tangled in her curls. She melted against him, and for the first time, he pulled her into his arms like she belonged there. But then, the door flew open. Soare stood there, her eyes wide with horror and disgust. Seo Minho, she hissed. Your fiancé is here. Sarah froze. What? Minho turned, stunned. What did you say? Soare's voice grew louder. Miss Jang Eunji, your arranged fiancé. Her father, the largest investor in your company, is in the lobby. Sarah stepped back. Her heart shattered. I see, she said quietly, turning away. Sarah. Minho reached for her. But she pulled her hand back like he was poison. I'm just your payment, remember? Her voice was broken. And you've gotten your heir. The contract is over. The silence in the master suite was suffocating. Sarah stood by the window, watching the rain trace delicate patterns on the glass like ghosts of her past. Her arms wrapped tightly around herself, shielding her bump like armor, even though her heart lay wide open, exposed, trembling. He had a fiancé. He never told me. All of this was a lie. Minho faced Jang Eunji, the elegant daughter of Chairman Jang of Sunwoo Holdings. Her beauty was calculated, long legs, porcelain skin, blood-red lips, but her eyes were sharp.
Too sharp.
She wasn't here for love. She was here for ownership. Appa, she purred, stepping into his personal study. It's been so long. You've grown even colder, like an ice sculpture. I didn't invite you here. My father did, she smiled sweetly. Your shares are struggling. You need his vote on the board. Let's not pretend we're strangers. He stiffened. Did you think I wouldn't hear about her? Eunji whispered. That African girl you're hiding in your mansion? The one carrying your bastard child. Minho's eyes flashed with danger. Watch your words. She laughed bitterly. It's adorable. You slept with your payment. Leave. No. She stepped closer. Marry me. Sign the documents. And I'll make all of this, her, go away. Sarah stared at herself in the mirror, her eyes puffy, her lips trembling. Enough. She wasn't going to be a silent trophy in this house anymore. She packed what little she had, 3 dresses, prenatal vitamins, her passport, and a small amount of money she had secretly saved from leftover tips the maids discarded. Her heart pounded, her legs shaky. It was the middle of the night. She made her way down the side stairwell, cloaked in silence, her coat pulled tight over her belly. She passed by the front gates, quietly negotiating with the driver. He hesitated. Miss, where are you going? Anywhere but here. The gate opened slowly, like fate teasing her freedom. She stepped into the night and stopped. A black car screeched to a halt outside. Minho. He jumped out, rain pouring around him, his eyes blazing. What are you doing? He barked. She turned slowly. Her coat drenched, her lips quivering. Leaving. You can't. I am. You're carrying my child. I'm not your prisoner. He stormed up to her, grabbing her wrist. You think this is just about me? What about the baby? Tears slid down her cheeks. What baby wants a father who doesn't believe in love? His grip loosened. I'm not a toy, she whispered. Not your leverage. Not your shame. I'm trying to protect you. No, she interrupted. You're protecting yourself. Lightning cracked the sky behind them. The world stood still. And then, she fainted. Sarah's eyes fluttered open. Sterile lights.
Soft beeping.
A white ceiling. She turned slowly and saw Minho sitting at the foot of the hospital bed, head in his hands. His hair was wet. His tie was gone. His soul looked like it had been ripped in half. You scared me, he said quietly, his voice almost broken. She blinked. Is the baby? The baby's fine, he whispered. But you're not. She turned her face away. I didn't mean to trap you, he said. But I also didn't want to lose you. Sarah didn't answer. Minho stood slowly and walked to her side. He knelt. I don't know how to love, he whispered. No one ever showed me. My mother left. My father beat me. I buried myself in business because emotions were chaos. He looked up at her. But when I'm around you, everything is chaos. And I don't want it to stop. Her eyes filled with tears. But Unji. She's gone, he said. I told her to leave. I'd rather lose my empire than lose you. Silence. Sarah, he whispered, his voice trembling. Stay. She looked at him long and hard. Then slowly, she reached for his hand. Minho was different now. He came home earlier. He brought her mango slices from the farmer's market. He read to her. He kissed her forehead when he thought she was asleep. But he never said the words. And Sarah, despite the warmth growing between them, knew something still stood in the way.
His past.
And a secret she was yet to discover. Because someone was watching her. Someone from her father's world. And the day she received the black envelope on her pillow with one word scrawled in red ink, run, was the day everything changed again. Sarah stood frozen in the center of the Grand Master Suite, the black envelope still in her hand. The one word scrawled in red shook her to her core. Run. She read it over and over. Not signed. No explanation. Just that one, haunting command. Her pulse raced. Her fingers trembled. Who left it? Why now? Was someone watching her? Had they always been watching? Then, Minho walked into the room. He saw her pale face and the note in her hand. What's that? He asked, concern instantly taking over his normally cold demeanor. She looked at him, tears forming in her eyes. Someone left this on my pillow. He took it from her hands. His expression darkened. Where's Soare? He growled, pulling out his phone. But before he could dial, the power in the entire mansion went out. Darkness swallowed them. Seconds later, a loud crash came from downstairs. Glass shattered. Screams echoed. Sarah screamed, clutching her belly. Stay here, Minho ordered, moving like lightning to the hidden safe near the wall. No, she cried. Don't leave me. But it was too late. Gunshots rang out. Sarah stumbled into the walk-in closet, heart in her throat, body trembling. She heard fighting. Loud. Violent. Minho yelling. Then silence. And then, rough hands grabbed her. A black hood. Duct tape. Rope. And darkness again. Sarah awoke in a cold warehouse. Her hands bound. Her belly ached. Her mouth dry. Across from her stood the last person she ever expected to see. Mr. Naji. Her father. Alive. But unrecognizable. Gaunt. Hollow-eyed. Dressed in tattered clothes with a scar running across his cheek. Papa, she whispered, 1,000 emotions crashing over her. I'm sorry, Sarah, he whispered. I had to. You sold me, she said, tears in her voice. I was threatened. By them. He pointed toward the shadows where masked men stood. You dragged me into this hell for what? Money? Status. I never meant for it to go this far, he muttered. But then you got pregnant, and Minho wouldn't cooperate. Sarah froze. What do you mean? He was supposed to hand over the land his grandfather left him. That land is worth billions in foreign development. I promised it to my debtors, but he refused. You tried to use me as a weapon. I'm trying to save myself. But you've already destroyed me. Meanwhile, Minho bled from a gash on his forehead, but he fought his way to the warehouse with a GPS he'd planted inside Sarah's necklace. He drove like a madman. His heart had never pounded like this. Not in boardrooms. Not during mergers. Not even during the night he almost died in a car accident years ago. This was worse. Because this time, the woman carrying his child was out there. And he loved her. Gunshots erupted as Minho crashed into the warehouse with a dozen private guards. The kidnappers fought back, but were outnumbered. In the chaos, Sarah screamed his name. Minho. He ran to her, blood staining his white shirt, eyes wild. He cut her ropes, pulled the hood from her face, and touched her cheeks. "You're safe. I've got you." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she threw her arms around him. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I came," he choked. "You're my heart." Mr. Naji tried to flee. Minho cornered him with a loaded gun. "You brought this on her," he growled. "You sold her, used her, and now you nearly killed her." "I had no choice," Mr. Naji shouted. "You did." Minho pulled Sarah behind him and aimed. But Sarah grabbed his hand. "Don't," she whispered. "He's not worth it." Minho looked at her, then back at the man who had almost taken everything from them. He lowered the gun. "You'll rot in prison," Minho said. "And I'll make sure the world knows what you did to your daughter." Mr. Naji collapsed to his knees. The guards handcuffed him. Sarah didn't cry. She was too broken for tears. But she felt Minho's hand in hers, and that was enough to remind her she was alive. The snow outside the countryside home was thick and pure. Minho sat beside the fireplace, rocking a small baby boy in his arms, his son. Their son. Sarah leaned against the wall, watching him. She looked different now, stronger, softer, with a peace in her eyes she never thought she'd feel again. Minho stood, carrying the baby to her. "He wants you." Sarah took the baby with a smile. "How do you know?" "He starts crying whenever I hold him. Clearly, he's inherited your standards." She laughed softly. They sat together, baby between them. For a moment, they just stared at the fire. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved me first," he replied. "By not running away from me even when I pushed you." "I did run. But you came back." She looked into his eyes. He reached for her hand, pulled it to his lips, and kissed her palm. Then her wrist. Then her lips. "I love you, Sarah," he said. Tears filled her eyes. The word she'd longed for had finally come, not as a performance, not out of obligation, but pure, honest truth. "I love you too," she whispered. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside, they burned together. In the months that followed, the press had a field day with the CEO's secret African wife story. But Minho didn't hide her. He held her hand at press conferences. He introduced her as his strength. Sarah returned to school, studying international law, while raising their son with dignity and joy. They weren't perfect, but they were real. And beneath that cold, porcelain sky they once feared, they found a warmth no one could steal again.